My name's Chris Smith. I work in the press and PR team at Propertymark, and we're here with Daryl McIntosh, Propertymark's Policy Manager, today to talk about all things Scotland. Daryl, the draft rented sector strategy seems like a good place to start. Published in December. Where are we with it?
The draft rented sector strategy, an 84-page document, sets out what we can expect in a housing bill to come in 2023. Propertymark put together a series of virtual roundtable events that Patrick Harvie, the Minister for Tenants' Rights, attended along with other parliamentarians. We have formed a response and sent that back to the Scottish Government and expect to see analysis of all responses to be published later this year.
So we've had a couple of big decisions already made around notice periods and grounds for possession as part of the coronavirus recovery bill. Do you want to explain a little bit about those?
The notice periods for recovery of property have returned to pre-pandemic levels, and the coronavirus recovery bill has introduced permanently the grounds for possession to be discretionary. The coronavirus recovery bill also introduced permanently the pre-action requirements for recovery of property on the grounds of rent arrears. So a landlord and agent has to go through the measures or continue with the measures to try and support the tenant before they can recover the property on the grounds of rent arrears.
We've been fairly critical of those decisions.
Yes, we were critical in that they were lacking of evidence. The grounds that were introduced, or these were temporary measures that were introduced during the pandemic. They were, as I mentioned, they weren't evidence-based, and as well, and the coronavirus recovery bill shouldn't really have contained housing. It was health protection measures as well, yet these measures were introduced in that bill.
What's the potential impact of those changes?
The potential impact remains to be seen. There is perhaps a perceived threat that landlords will leave the sector where they're unable to recover their property, as the decisions will be made by the tribunal on the grounds of reasonableness. So will it be reasonable for the landlord to have their property back as opposed to remaining with the tenant?
Looking ahead to the next 6 months, the rest of the year, we've got this national conference coming up, thorny issue of rent controls. How will the rest of the year pan out?
I think there is a lot to, I was going to say look forward, there's a lot to expect, and in the upcoming 6 months, the Propertymark National Conference, Scotland National Conference, looks to be interesting, with Patrick Harvie attending to address the delegates on the 15th of September. So it will be interesting to see what he has to say. At that point, he may have issued a further consultation on rent controls and how they perceive the Scottish Government are going to take these forward. There'll also be measures, or there may be more detail on what we can expect in the housing bill.
So what's the timescale for the housing bill, and what can we expect from it?
It's proposed to be introduced in 2023. They're looking at introducing or strengthening tenants' rights. That's around decor and pets. There is a proposed ban on winter evictions. There has been no clarity on when winter in Scotland is. I say it's between January and December, so we'll be waiting on clarity for then. At some point we'll also be expecting minimum standards for energy efficiency, and undoubtedly that will be introduced at some point.
You've had lots of conversations already with Patrick Harvie. Is he listening to what we're saying?
To some extent, I would say yes, Patrick Harvie is listening to us. He is starting to realise that there are a lot of good landlords and agents out there, but it's how do we, and perhaps this may be looked at in the housing bill, protect tenants and carry out more enforcement on rogue landlords.
So rent controls is a much talked about subject. Scottish Government seems very committed to it. Any idea yet what that's going to look like, or what the timetable is?
Rent controls appear to be two words that are instilling fear in the sector throughout the UK, and we definitely need clarity on the Scottish Government's proposal and what they intend to do. Rent controls already exist in Scotland in the form of rent pressure zones, where mid-tenancy rent increases are capped. Perhaps we will see a form of capping on tenancy or rent increases. I don't think I would be surprised if we saw a cap on rents at the outset. I don't think there is appetite for that to be introduced immediately. I think that we would see a mass exodus of landlords and agents at that point, and we're already seeing landlords vacate or sell their portfolios already. So I think the Scottish Government would have to be mindful of unintended consequences on any rent controls that they introduce.